What if I told you not all true Christians are going to heaven? And what if the Bible doesn't leave that question open, but gives an exact number of those who will? Because if that number is real and limited, then millions of sincere believers may be preparing for a future the Bible never actually promised them. Let me be clear, this isn't about attacking faith. It's about something far more uncomfortable: assumptions. Assumptions passed down, repeated, and rarely questioned. Many people love God. Many follow Jesus. Many pray, worship, and live morally upright lives. Yet very few have ever stopped to ask a simple question: did Jesus promise the same future to everyone who follows him? The book of Revelation introduces a sealed group, carefully chosen, deliberately numbered, and marked before the greatest crisis in human history begins. Not after, before. Who are they? Why are they sealed? And if only a specific group is chosen for heaven, what does that mean for everyone else who puts their faith in Christ? Stay with me, because once you understand who the 144,000 really are, you won't just understand Revelation, you'll finally understand where you fit in God's purpose and why this truth matters right now. Picture this: the world on the brink of collapse. Revelation chapter 7 opens with 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding back the destructive winds of judgment. Everything is paused. Time itself seems suspended. Why? Because something critical must happen first. And if this sealing happens before the storm is released, then what you do now suddenly becomes a matter of survival. The command rings out: do not harm the earth or the sea or the trees until after we have sealed the slaves of our God in their foreheads. Revelation 7 verse 3. A sealing, a mark of ownership, a divine stamp of protection. So the question is not whether judgment is coming. The question is who will be protected when it arrives. Before we go any further, let me say this clearly. This isn't about proving anyone wrong or tearing down sincere faith. Millions of people genuinely love God and sincerely follow Jesus, and that matters deeply. What we're doing here is something far simpler and far more honest. We're letting the Bible speak for itself, even when it challenges assumptions we've carried for a long time. Nothing in this discussion removes hope. In fact, it expands it. Because Revelation is not a book of exclusion, it's a book of order, purpose, and protection. So stay with the scriptures, stay with the context, and let's allow the Bible, not tradition, not emotion, to show us how God has arranged his purpose for all who love him. But what does this sealing mean? Sealing in Bible times wasn't just about wax on a scroll. It was proof of authenticity, identity, and authority. Kings sealed decrees to show their power. Merchants sealed goods to prove ownership. Here, God himself places his seal on his servants, marking them as his beyond dispute. Which means this isn't just a topic to study. It's a line Jehovah draws between those who belong to him and those who don't. But who receives this seal? Why only 144,000? And why does God stop the winds of destruction until this sealing is finished? And here's why this matters. This sealing happens before the crisis begins, not after, meaning decisions made now determine who is protected later. So if the timing is that urgent, then the identity of the sealed becomes one of the most important truths you could ever understand. We're about to step into one of the most mysterious and debated prophecies in the entire Bible, and its answer could determine how you survive what comes next. The vision of 144,000. The angel's announcement gets specific. Revelation 7 verse 4 says, "And I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000, sealed out of every tribe of the sons of Israel." Then the text goes on to list 12 tribes, each with exactly 12,000 sealed. At first glance, this sounds straightforward. 12 tribes, 12,000 from each, done. But here's the problem. When you read the list carefully, it doesn't match the actual genealogical tribes of Israel found elsewhere in the Bible. Some tribes are missing, others are substituted. Why? And once you notice that mismatch, you can't ignore it, because it means this list isn't trying to tell us something deeper than bloodline. Could it be that this list isn't about ethnic genealogy at all, but about something far greater? Now, if you remember our very first video in this Revelation series, the Book of Revelation Decode, the hidden message they never told you, we showed that the entire book is written in signs and symbols. Revelation 1 verse 1 tells us it was presented in a sign, or encrypted. Why? To keep Satan and his angels in the dark, confused, chasing wild goose interpretations, and guessing until the right time for true knowledge to be revealed. That means characters, numbers, and visions here are not literal, they are symbolic. And the only way to decode them is not human speculation, but by using the Bible itself as the key. So the big question becomes, if the tribes are symbolic, what is Jehovah actually counting, and why is he counting it so precisely? If you haven't watched that first video yet, pause here and click the link above. It will give you the foundation to understand why Revelation must be read symbolically. It's crucial background before going deeper. This idea of a symbolic numbering goes all the way back to the Hebrew scriptures. In Numbers chapter 1, the nation of Israel was carefully organized and numbered tribe by tribe, not because God didn't know their numbers, but to show his order, his precision, and his recognition of each faithful one. Revelation echoes this, but in a spiritual sense. Even more striking, in Ezekiel chapter 9, a vision shows a man with a secretary's inkhorn marking God's loyal ones on their foreheads before judgment sweeps through Jerusalem. Those without the mark are destroyed. Doesn't that sound familiar? Revelation picks up the same imagery, God's faithful ones sealed, marked, preserved, before destructive winds are released. So Revelation isn't introducing a new idea, it's confirming a pattern Jehovah has used before. Mark first, then judgment. With this biblical backdrop, let's return to the question, who are the sealed ones? The Apostle Paul helps us here. In Romans 2:28-29, he explained that true Jewishness isn't about outward descent, but about what's inside, obedience from the heart. And in Galatians 6, verse 16, he calls the congregation of anointed Christians the Israel of God. That means the real issue isn't ancestry, it's identity. Who does Jehovah recognize as his people today? So Revelation isn't pointing to literal Israelites, it's painting a symbolic picture. 12 tribes multiplied perfectly to 12,000 each, forming a complete, divinely organized group, the 144,000, a spiritual Israel, chosen not by bloodline, but by God's Spirit. But who exactly are they? Are they all believers, a special class, or only symbolic? The next vision in Revelation 14 unveils their identity in breathtaking detail. And when Revelation 14 answers that question, it doesn't just clarify the 144,000, it forces a much bigger question about what hope most faithful people are actually promised.
Who are they? The vision shifts in Revelation chapter 14. John says, "I saw and look, the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, who have his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads." Revelation 14:1. Notice, John doesn't see a vague crowd. He sees a numbered group in a specific place with a specific relationship to the Lamb. This is no ordinary crowd. Notice first where they are, with the Lamb, Jesus Christ, on Mount Zion. In the Bible, Mount Zion represents God's heavenly government. So these sealed ones are not earthly, they are a group called to rule alongside Christ in heaven. They have his name and the name of his Father written on their foreheads. This does not describe a literal mark. In the Bible, the forehead represents the mind, convictions, and conscious allegiance. So having the name of Jesus and the name of his Father written on their foreheads identifies these sealed ones as genuine followers of Christ, true Christians whose loyalty is unmistakable. They are publicly identified with the name of Jesus' Father, Jehovah, showing that they belong to him. They bear his name willingly, representing him as his servants, advocates, and authorized representatives, acting as ambassadors under Christ's authority. In other words, the real mark isn't on the skin, it's on the mind, and that kind of mark can't be hidden. This harmonizes with Revelation 3:12, where Jesus promises that those who conquer will have the name of my God written upon them. It signifies divine ownership, approval, and permanent association with God's kingdom. While the world bears many marks of allegiance, these sealed ones are clearly and unmistakably marked as belonging to Jehovah, loyal in thought, identity, and purpose. But what sets them apart? Revelation 14:4-5 gives us their unique traits. They are virgins, not in a physical sense, but spiritually pure, untainted by the world's corrupt systems. Just as ancient Israel's priests had to remain ceremonially clean to serve at the temple, these ones maintain loyalty and purity in their worship. They follow the Lamb no matter where he goes, absolute loyalty. Like David's mighty men who risked their lives to follow their king, these ones follow Christ faithfully, even into sacrifice. They were bought from among mankind as firstfruits. Just as the firstfruits of Israel's harvest were offered to God, these chosen ones are set apart from the rest of mankind as a special offering to Jehovah. No lie was found in their mouths. They are without blemish. Their integrity echoes Psalm 15 verse 2, which describes those who dwell in Jehovah's presence as speaking truth from their heart. Taken together, these qualities don't describe all believers, they describe a calling. Clearly, this is not just a symbolic description of all believers. These are a select group, chosen, sealed, and elevated to serve a unique role with Christ himself. Now pause for a moment, because this structure is not new. Jesus himself began establishing it during his earthly ministry. While he had disciples numbering into the thousands, Luke chapter 6 verses 12 and 13 tells us he specifically called out and chose a smaller group of 12, whom he named apostles. This was no accident. These 12 formed the foundation of something greater. So even during Jesus' ministry, closeness did not mean the same assignment for everyone. Later, on the very night before his death, Jesus did something profoundly intentional. He did not make a covenant with all of his disciples, not even with his close friends, Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. Not with Mary Magdalene, not with his relatives, including his mother, his brothers, and Salome. Instead, Jesus drew a clear line. He limited this covenant to the 12 apostles he had personally chosen. As recorded in Luke chapter 22, verses 19 through 30, Jesus told these apostles that they would sit on thrones ruling the 12 tribes of Israel, serving as kings and priests in his kingdom. This was not a promise extended to everyone who loved him. It was a specific assignment given to a selected few. The pattern is unmistakable. Many disciples followed Jesus, learned from him, and benefited from his ministry, but within that larger body, a smaller group was chosen for authority, administration, and rulership in God's kingdom. Salvation was offered broadly, but kingdom rulership was entrusted selectively. That distinction between salvation and rulership is the key that unlocks everything that follows. And that group expanded. After Jesus' resurrection, on the day of Pentecost in 33 CE, Acts chapters 1 verse 15 and 2 verse 3 shows us that the number grew to 120 Spirit-anointed disciples. That was 10 times the original 12, a sign that the number was increasing but still limited, still distinct. Revelation now reveals the grand total. Not just 12, not just 120, but 144,000 anointed ones sealed across time, from the first century until our day, gathered together as a single, complete class. They are called by different names throughout the scriptures: apostles, saints, holy ones, but they share the same identity and the same calling. These are Christ's brothers, chosen, sealed, and brought together into a single finished number. Together, they form the complete body of those selected to rule with Christ Jesus in his heavenly kingdom, serving as kings and priests on behalf of all obedient mankind. And Revelation leaves no doubt about their assignment. These sealed ones are bought from the earth, resurrected to heavenly life, and entrusted with authority to rule alongside Christ as kings and priests. Revelation 5 verses 9 through 10 confirms this. You bought people for God out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and you made them to be a kingdom and priests to our God, and they are to rule as kings over the earth. This makes it crystal clear the 144,000 are not just symbolic, they are individuals chosen out of the human race, lifted to heaven, not for privilege, but to serve as rulers and priests on behalf of all mankind. So the question is no longer who they are, but why their role matters to everyone else. This matches the prophetic pattern. Psalm 110 verse 1 through 4 foretold the Messiah seated at the right hand, ruling with a scepter of kingship, while also serving as a priest forever. Daniel chapter 7 verses 13 through 14 prophesied that the Son of Man would receive rulership and authority, but verse 27 adds that this rulership is shared with the holy ones of the Most High. And the New Testament reinforces it again. 2 Timothy 2 verse 12 says, "If we go on enduring, we will also rule together as kings." Romans 8 verse 17 adds that those anointed by God's Spirit are joint heirs with Christ. Not every believer is spoken of this way, only those chosen and sealed to share Christ's heavenly throne. So who are they? So what do we see? A consistent thread from Jesus' ministry to Revelation's climax. Among the many disciples, there is a chosen few, sealed, anointed, set apart as kings and priests, a complete number, 144,000. Let me pause us here for just a moment. If you're still watching, it means something important has clicked. You've seen that the Bible is describing structure, not favoritism, purpose, not exclusion. But this is where many people lose the thread, because the question is no longer who the 144,000 are. The real question now is why this arrangement exists at all. Why would God choose a limited number to rule with Christ? Why not take everyone to heaven? And what does this mean for the billions of faithful people who are not part of that number? Stay with me, because the next part connects everything you've heard so far. And once you see how this structure fits into God's original purpose for the earth, the entire Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, starts to make sense in a way most people have never seen. But here's the question. If this group is limited, only 144,000, where does that leave the rest of Jesus' disciples? Billions have followed him faithfully through the centuries. Are they left out, overlooked, or could God's purpose hold something just as powerful for them, something Revelation calls the great crowd? That's where the picture becomes even clearer, the role of the 144,000 in God's purpose and what it means for the rest of mankind.
Their role in God's purpose. So why does God select and seal exactly 144,000? What is their role in his grand purpose? Revelation chapter 20 verse 6 says of them, "Happy and holy is anyone having part in the first resurrection. Over these the second death has no authority, but they will be priests of God and of the Christ, and will rule as kings with him for the 1,000 years." Here, their destiny is unmistakable.
They are resurrected to heavenly life, not to float idly in the clouds, but to rule with Christ in his kingdom. So heaven, in this prophecy, is not a destination of rest. It is a place of responsibility. This role combines two functions, kingship and priesthood. As kings, they share Christ's throne, exercising authority. As priests, they help restore obedient mankind to perfection, applying the benefits of Jesus' ransom sacrifice. The result? A healed earth, cleansed of sin and suffering. Which means their heavenly role is inseparably linked to what happens on earth. Revelation 5 verse 9 and 10 already revealed this. You bought people for God out of every tribe, tongue, people, and nation, and you made them to be a kingdom and priests to our God, and they are to rule as kings over the earth. Notice carefully, this is not a group from one nation or culture. They are taken out of every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. A worldwide selection representing all humanity, yet lifted to heaven to govern on behalf of all mankind, who will live on a restored earth. So their selection is global, but their purpose is universal. This is why Jesus called them his little flock. In Luke 12, verse 32, he said, "Have no fear, little flock, because your Father has approved of giving you the kingdom." A small, distinct group, contrasted with the other sheep he spoke of in John 10, verse 16, who are united as one flock under one shepherd, but with a different destiny. Two groups, one shepherd, one kingdom, different assignments. Think about it. Just as any government has rulers and citizens, God's kingdom is structured the same way. The 144,000, together with Christ, form the government, the rulers. The great crowd, along with the faithful of old and billions resurrected in the future, form the citizens, the ones who benefit from that rule. One kingdom, two destinies, both vital to God's plan. Without rulers, there is no kingdom. Without citizens, there is no purpose. This was foreshadowed in Jesus' own parables. In Matthew 19, verse 28, he told his apostles they would sit on 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Not judging to condemn, but judging in the sense of guiding, restoring, and leading God's people to perfection. The same pattern is expanded in Revelation. Those 12 become 144,000, extending that privilege to a complete number. Revelation doesn't replace Jesus' teachings, it enlarges them. And what will life under that kingdom look like? The Hebrew prophets give us glimpses. Isaiah 65 verse 21-22 describes people building houses and living in them, planting vineyards and eating their fruit. No more displacement, no more insecurity. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 14 says, "The earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of Jehovah as the waters cover the sea." Under the rule of Christ and the 144,000, the earth will not be abandoned. It will be restored to paradise, filled with righteousness and peace. This is not escape from earth, it is the healing of it. So what do we see? A dual hope, 144,000 sealed ones taken to heaven to serve as kings and priests, and a great crowd of loyal ones who inherit life on a cleansed, restored earth. Far from being an exclusive number that leaves the rest out, the 144,000 are chosen to serve humanity. Their sealing is not just about their protection, it's about your future, my future, and the survival of the entire human family. Their calling answers a question most people never think to ask. Who will govern the world after this one ends? But if this is the role of the 144,000, then who exactly is the great crowd? And how does their destiny unfold during the Great Tribulation? Revelation doesn't leave us guessing. It paints a vivid picture. Why the number 144,000? At this point, another question naturally arises. Why 144,000? Why not a round million? Why not simply say many? Because when Jehovah gives a number, it is never accidental. In the Bible, numbers often carry symbolic meaning. 12, for example, represents divine completeness and organization. Think of the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 apostles of the Lamb, or the 12 foundation stones of New Jerusalem. 12 is the number of God's organized people. Multiply 12 by 12 and you arrive at a perfect squared completeness. Then multiply by 1,000, a number symbolizing magnitude and fullness, and you arrive at 144,000. So this number is not random. It represents a complete, perfectly organized group known and sealed by God Himself. Not one is missing, not one overlooked. This is God's way of showing His sovereignty, His precision, and His absolute control over who serves in His kingdom government. In other words, this number tells us more about God than it does about the group itself. And this is important because unlike human governments where leaders are chosen by flawed processes or corrupted by greed, here we see that Jehovah personally selects each 144,000. Their number is exact, their sealing certain. When the last one is sealed, the number is complete. God's government is ready to act. Which means the delay we see in world events is not weakness, it is restraint. But here's where it gets fascinating. Revelation doesn't end with the 144,000. Immediately after this vision, John is shown something else, a vast, unnumbered group, a great crowd that no man can number, standing before the throne. If the 144,000 are sealed for heavenly rulership, then who is this great crowd, and what is their destiny in God's purpose? Revelation gives us the answer, and it changes everything.
The great crowd connection. Right after John hears the number of the sealed, 144,000, his vision shifts. Revelation 7, 9, and 10 says, "After this I saw, and look, a great crowd, which no man was able to number, out of all nations and tribes and peoples and tongues. They were standing before the throne and before the Lamb, dressed in white robes, and there were palm branches in their hands. And they keep shouting with a loud voice, 'Salvation we owe to our God, who is seated on the throne, and to the Lamb.'" Notice the timing. This vision appears immediately after the number 144,000 is announced, not centuries later. Notice the contrast. The 144,000 are counted, exact, sealed, no more, no less. But this great crowd, unnumbered, so vast, so immense that no man can count it. Both groups are before the throne, both are loyal to the Lamb, but their destinies are different. So Revelation is not presenting one group under two names. It is showing two groups side by side. Who are they? Revelation 7:14 tells us, "These are the ones who come out of the great tribulation, and they have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb." Unlike the 144,000, they are not taken to heaven. They survive the end of this system, preserved to live under the rule of Christ and the 144,000 here on earth. That single detail changes everything, because survival through the tribulation is not the same as resurrection to heaven. The Hebrew Scriptures confirm this earthly hope. Psalm 37, 9-11 says, "Evil men will be done away with, but those hoping in Jehovah will possess the earth. Just a little while longer, and the wicked will be no more. You will look at where they were, and they will not be there. But the meek will possess the earth, and they will find exquisite delight in the abundance of peace." So the future of the great crowd is not just survival, it is survival into a cleansed earth where wickedness is gone and peace is abundant.
This is not a temporary refuge, it is a permanent home. This is reinforced by the prophecy in Isaiah 65:21-23, which says, "They will build houses and live in them, and they will plant vineyards and eat their fruitage. They will not build for someone else to inhabit, nor will they plant for others to eat. For the days of my people will be like the days of a tree, and the work of my hands, my chosen ones, will enjoy to the full." No more oppression, no more exploitation, just the joy of secure homes, fruitful labor, and long, satisfying life. These are not symbolic comforts, they are tangible promises. And it gets even more vivid. Isaiah 11:6-9 describes peace spreading even to the animal kingdom. The wolf will reside for a while with the lamb, and with the young goat the leopard will lie down. The lion will eat straw like the bull. They will not cause any harm or any ruin in all my holy mountain, because the earth will certainly be filled with the knowledge of Jehovah as the waters cover the sea. Can you imagine a world where not just people, but all creation lives in harmony? This is the destiny of the great crowd, life in a restored paradise. This is not a dream of escape, it is a promise of restoration. This is exactly what Jesus meant in Matthew 5:5. "Happy are the mild-tempered, since they will inherit the earth." And it echoes Psalm 37:29. "The righteous will possess the earth, and they will live on it forever." Both Jesus and the psalmist pointed to the same hope, the inheritance of the earth, not heaven, for the great crowd of faithful ones. Revelation 21:4 crowns it with the ultimate promise. He will wipe out every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more, neither mourning nor outcry nor pain be any more. The former things have passed away. No more hospitals, no more funerals, no more graves. The curse of death will be gone forever. This is not poetic exaggeration. It is the complete reversal of everything that causes human suffering today. For a deeper look at these promises, watch our video, What the Earth Would Be Like After the End. Click the link above for a full picture of the paradise earth awaiting faithful mankind. So, do you see the harmony? The Bible does not teach that all believers go to heaven. The 144,000 are sealed to rule with Christ as kings and priests. The great crowd, vast, unnumbered, are preserved to inherit the earth in peace, joy, and everlasting life. Two hopes, but one unified purpose. This truth has been blurred, twisted, and ignored for centuries. Some teach that heaven is the only goal. Others claim the earth will be destroyed. But the scriptures speak plainly. One kingdom, two destinies. Heavenly rulers and earthly citizens, both working together in Jehovah's purpose. And here's the urgent point. If the sealing of the 144,000 is nearly complete, then the great crowd must take their stand now, because the great tribulation is closer than we think. Which means delay is no longer neutral, it is a decision. Why it matters now. You might be wondering, why does this matter now? Why spend so much time unraveling the mystery of the 144,000 and the great crowd? Because these aren't abstract numbers. They represent real people, some living today, who are part of God's purpose. And the decisions you make right now determine where you stand in this prophecy. This isn't about decoding Revelation, it's about locating yourself within it. The sealing of the 144,000 is nearly complete. That means God's kingdom government is ready. Once that number is filled, the destructive winds of the Great Tribulation will no longer be held back. The time for neutrality will be over. Revelation 7:1-3. Where will you stand when that moment comes? Among the marked ones whom God protects, or among the world that passes away? Here's why it matters to you. God knows His people individually. None are overlooked. None are lost in the crowd.
The sealing of the 144,000 shows us God has a precise plan, and the great crowd shows us that plan includes countless others, people like you, people like me, who can survive into a new world. Jehovah doesn't save masses, he saves people. But survival isn't automatic. Revelation shows that the great crowd came from the great tribulation and have washed their robes in the blood of the Lamb. That means loyalty, obedience, and faith in Jesus Christ, not half-hearted faith, but active devotion. So ask yourself, are your thoughts and actions, your forehead and your hand, marked by loyalty to God or by compromise with this world? Because in the end, everyone bears a mark, one way or another. The Apostle Peter raised a similar challenge in 2 Peter 3:11-12. Since all these things are to be dissolved in this way, consider what sort of persons you ought to be in holy acts of conduct and deeds of godly devotion as you await and keep close in mind the presence of the day of Jehovah. In other words, knowing what's about to happen, will you live for this system or for the one that's about to replace it? If you want to dig deeper into how to prepare yourself and survive what's ahead, watch our earlier video, How to Survive the End of the World. Click on the link above for practical steps and insights straight from the scriptures. This prophecy matters because it's about ownership. Whose mark will you carry when the winds of judgment are unleashed? God's seal or the mark of the world's beastly systems? Because neutrality disappears the moment the winds are released. But don't let fear grip you. Jehovah offers hope, protection, and belonging. He promises that a great crowd no man can number will come through the tribulation alive, and you can be part of that number if you take your stand now before it's too late.
So now the question is, where do you stand in this prophecy? Will you stand with the Lamb, loyal to Jehovah, sealed for survival? Or will you be swept away with a world that is passing away? The choice isn't distant, it's right in front of you, today. Don't wait until the winds of judgment blow. The time to decide is now. Take steps to strengthen your faith, deepen your knowledge of God's Word, draw close to Jehovah in prayer, and most of all, put loyalty to Him above every system, every nation, every ideology in this dying world. Because when the storm comes, only one foundation will still be standing. And don't keep this message to yourself. Share it with your loved ones, because the great crowd is made up of people from all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues. Your family, your friends, your neighbors, they too can stand with you before the throne if they hear and respond now. Now, picture this. You've come through the storm of the Great Tribulation, alive. Around you are millions, people of every background, every language, every walk of life, all united, safe, and joyful. You take a deep breath of clean, peaceful air, realizing the fear, the violence, the pain of this world is finally gone. You look at the faces around you, smiling, laughing, crying tears of relief, and you know this is just the beginning. A new world is opening before you. And the choices you make now decide whether you will be there. If you want to continue your journey and grow spiritually, I encourage you to visit jw.org. There you can read the Bible online, explore publications, and even find meetings near you that will help you strengthen your stand with Jehovah's people. Remember, the 144,000 are already being sealed, the great crowd is being gathered, and the great tribulation is coming fast. The question is, where will you stand when it begins? So let's bring this all the way home. The mystery of the 144,000 is no longer just a number. It is a revelation of God's love, order, and purpose. A small group sealed for heavenly rule. A vast, great crowd preserved for life on earth. One kingdom, two roles, both working together under Jehovah's perfect plan.
And this is not a distant prophecy waiting for fulfillment in another age. The sealing is nearly complete, the great crowd is being gathered, and the winds of judgment are being held back for only a little while longer. So here is the question that matters most. When that moment comes, where will you standing? With the Lamb, sealed, protected, and preserved for survival, or with a world that is quietly approaching its end? Don't let this be just another video you watch and move on from. Let it be a moment of clarity, a moment of reflection, a moment where you decide what kind of future you are preparing for. Dig into God's Word, strengthen your faith, and take your stand with Jehovah's people now, while there is still time. If you want to continue learning, growing, and aligning your life with God's purpose, visit jw.org. There you can read the Bible online, explore clear scriptural answers, and even find encouragement that will help you move forward with confidence. This is Deep Truth Cipher. Thank you for watching. Because the truth has been revealed, the only question left is what will you do with it?